So I'm Chantal, Brotherton-Ratcliffe, and I'm really flattered to have been chosen to pick 5 paintings for the Masterpiece Masters lineup. It's quite difficult to have chosen things, and I've chosen paintings and drawings, works on paper as a real kind of balance, but there's a huge amount to have to choose from. So my first choice is a fabulous portrait by Volta, or Franceschini as his name is, of a boy with his dog. It's not just a picture of a boy with a dog, it is what's called a portrait historié, and it shows a character, in this case the sitter, who is possibly the Marchese Altovita, we don't exactly know, with his dog in the guise, or like the fancy dress role of Adonis. And Adonis is the hunter in classical mythology who was so beautiful that Venus herself fell in love with him. And that's what we see, a boy who is so beautiful that his parents obviously felt he could bear the similarity, and who knows what he really looked like, it doesn't really matter, it's a very flattering picture. And it works really well as a picture of a boy with a dog as well. There's that wonderful thing, any of you who have a dog or have been greeted by a dog with great enthusiasm will recognise the dog sort of about to leap up and lick your face and paws on chest and so on. So it has a huge amount of sympathetic resonance. And I love this picture partly because it's, like everything in the 17th century, very Caravagesque. Obviously Volterrano knew Caravaggio's work, and it's got a great deal of dramatic lighting and depths of shadow and so on in it. But Volterrano comes from Florence, and the Florentine Baroque painters, who really we don't know as well as we ought to, love colour. And so if you look at this picture, it's got fabulously warm colouring. The boy has auburn hair, and the sleeve that he's wearing is a kind of blue that's blue like a midnight sky. It's just beautiful. The next piece I chose is a painting of Lobster and still life by Jan Davidson de Heem, and it's just a picture of pure, joy of life, especially for those of us who like lobsters. It's the most fantastic picture of really how to observe things. So what de Heem is doing is he's sort of the best of the Dutch artists who, as it were, take us by the hand and show us how to observe properly. I mean, most of us just don't look at things carefully enough to notice what the artist has noticed. And above all in this picture, of course, it's the reflections of the lobster in the pewter pot, which is stretched out along the side and then fabulously compact and tiny in the lid of the pewter flagon. And it's really interesting because de Heem is painting this whilst he's still in Holland. He went after a while to move to Antwerp, so I imagine he must have gone to be Catholic, leaving Protestant Holland. So he's painting this for a culture of sobriety, where people don't really approve of luxury. And most of the things in the picture reflect that sobriety. They are, green grapes, not red, or they're white wine, they're cool in tones, it's very muted colouring. And then right in the middle is this kind of shout of red, which is the lobster, which sort of is just the Catholic moment landing in the middle of this Dutch painting. I love it. So the next piece is a really interesting pen and wash drawing by Jan Bokhorst of St. Peter being released or drawn out of prison by an angel. The legacy of Caravaggio is absolutely everywhere in the 17th century. So you can feel that in the kind of drama that Bokhorst has put in of the shadows around the guards sleeping with their dog in the foreground. And then there's this fantastic supernatural fall of light, almost like rain coming from the heavens, which flows over Peter and the angel and almost like a mist, protecting them. It's tremendous use of dramatic light and shade. And it's interesting, it's a drawing, it's not a finished painting. It's presumably done for, or possibly done for a study for a painting to be done from it. But very often in the 17th century there was a habit of doing these drawings as just finished works in their own right. And I think looking at it, it's all the details are there, everything you want of fingertips or eyes, it works as a finished image as well. Well, the next painting I've chosen is an unfinished painting, and I think unfinished paintings appeal to us hugely today. They make very sort of contemporary looking images, don't they? And it always gives you that kind of feeling of privilege, behind the scenes access to the way the artist is working, the moment of creation. And this is really interesting, this one, because it's by Lawrence, who was always talked about by his contemporaries. He's sort of the greatest portraitist, really, of the 19th century. And he was talked about by his contemporaries as getting a really good likeness, which not all portraitists do, I don't think. And apparently one of the things he would do was sit for a whole day with his poor sitter, gazing and studying the proportions and the dimensions of the person's face and really getting absolutely right. And I think that's why what we've got in this painting, and then move on from that to working up a full portrait. But what I think is so really unique in this image is that he's painted parts totally, so it's almost an obsessive account of the one eye and the cheekbone, and then nothing at all for the other one, and he hasn't even begun the chin and the mouth. And their hair is all sort of loose and flying in a very kind of Lorentz proto-sergeant sort of way of painting. So you really almost have a feeling, I felt looking at it as if he was peeling off a layer from a figure that was really there behind the canvas. It's an uncanny process. I mean, really much more perhaps exciting than many unfinished paintings in what they show us of how the artist is working.